On November 7th, 1991, in Roseville, Minnesota, Tom Lang and his wife Jenny discovered it could be a fatal mistake to assume we're protected from danger in the comfort of our homes. That morning, their 8 adopted children were at home, asleep in their rooms on the top floor of the house.
I woke about 6 o'clock, just before my alarm was to go off, to the sound of a thud upstairs. What's going on up there? Thought perhaps this was one of our restless children who had fallen out of bed. But immediately after that, there was another thud and some crying, and I thought I had to investigate that. By the time I reached the top of the steps, I saw Chuck lying face down in the bathroom. Chuck? What's wrong? Dana? Come on. Dana, you two, let's get going. Let me help you.
No, I can't.
You can walk.
Can't.
Come on. Atta girl. I saw Tina in the hall and asked her how she was doing, and she said she was sick too.
I don't feel so good either.
Okay. My thinking at that time was basically that several kids had the flu, and that isn't unusual to have 3 or 4 kids at a time be sick in our household. A couple of the kids are sick upstairs. I think they have the flu.
I told Tom that I just couldn't get up then because I just felt too nauseated.
I'll take care of it. Well, I was trying to think through what might be going on. Why would so many family members be sick?
Tom, a physician, went to get some Tylenol.
When I got back upstairs, I found Jason lying on the hallway floor. Jason! It was at this point that I really became concerned. Christina! Christina! And I thought there was more to this perhaps than just the flu.
Thinking there might be a gas leak, Tom went to the basement to check the heaters.
We hadn't been using our pool for about 2 months, but the burner seemed to be going full blast, and I couldn't turn it off. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that heater shouldn't have been on like that. At this point, I felt a little woozy. But as soon as I felt that myself, I became convinced that we were probably poisoned by carbon monoxide.
At 7:05 a.m., a call came into the Ramsey County Sheriff's Department.
This is Dr. Tom Lang. Yes, sir. All of us woke up sick this morning. There's a family of 10. Okay, what do you think the problem is? We think it's carbon monoxide. I called the Ramsey Poison Control Center. Okay, so how sick is the sickest person there? We have coordination problems, and they have asked us all to come into the ER. I have a van, but I don't think I can drive. Okay, Mr. Lang, what am I going to do? Get my children down from upstairs. Okay, you keep them awake, and we'll send somebody right over. Thank you. All right.
It was important to keep the kids moving and crawling and getting down to the fresh air, because as long as they stayed where they weren't going to be safe. They just wanted to lay down, and that's the only thing you want to do because you're dizzy, you're nauseated, you're doubled up with pain in your stomach. The pain of this it's excruciating.
After my dad had called 911, I was wondering if they were going to be there in time in order to save us. So all you're thinking at that moment is, am I going to survive? Are we going to survive as a family?
Rescue units were immediately dispatched, including paramedic Denise DeMars.
Carbon monoxide poisoning is real serious, and it's a cumulative thing. You can get more and more and more, and if you don't get rid of it, you can go into respiratory arrest, cardiac arrest, and you will die from it.
Cindy, come on. You can do it, can't you?
The kids were so sick. We were so sick. You can't stand up. You can't move.
Okay.
Mobilizing those kids when they're that way. You hardly have the strength, but yet you know you have to do it. It's like being in a fire. You've got to move. Keep going. They kept saying, I can't. And we said, you've got to. You've got to. This is your life.
Because of the large number of victims, extra rescue units were sent. Within 10 minutes of the call, rescue workers, including Fire Chief Joel Hewitt, began arriving at the scene.
I immediately got out of the truck with my personnel, and I told them to go and systematically search the house from the north end to the south end, looking in the closets, under the beds, in the bathrooms, wherever a person could be. They were all in different stages of consciousness. Some were vomiting, some had severe headaches. And we had just a steady stream of people, firefighters coming down the stairs with victims in their arms.
We knew we were in a race against time. We still had to get them to the hospital fast. We had to treat them fast because if the carbon monoxide isn't cleared from the system, they could have come out with permanent brain damage or permanent damage to the respiratory system or their hearts. These kids were not out of the woods, even though they were out of the house. My job was to try and assess all 10 people at once, see who was the worst. I had them all look at me and said, raise your hand if you think you have to throw up. Raise your hand if you have a headache. That's when I knew that the person who raised their hand all 3 questions was probably in a lot more trouble than the one who only had 2 or maybe 1 symptom. Immediately we routed them to the Hennepin County Medical Center because they have a decompression chamber there.
County to the hyperbaric chamber.
And then the people who were slightly less affected went first to the Ramsey County Medical Center.
I thought that all of us could have lost our lives within minutes, perhaps seconds. It was just too close.
All 10 family members were treated and released without any sign of permanent injury. Tom and Ginny were treated in the emergency room by Dr. John McGill.
Carbon monoxide poisoning is known as the silent killer. It's colorless, odorless, and tasteless. And if it had occurred early in the night, they may have slept into unconsciousness and death. So I think they're all lucky to be alive.
An investigation showed that the heat exchanger on the pool furnace had corroded, causing dangerous gases to back up inside the house.
If you think that you are suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning, the absolute first thing to do is get out of the area that you're in. The second is to call 911 or certainly get to the hospital for evaluation.
A month after the incident, the memories of that morning are still vivid for the whole Lang family.
My dad helped us through it all. If he hadn't gone down and checked on the furnace and realized what was going on, I probably would have died.
Come on, Chris. Come on, John.
We're definitely grateful to be alive, and we know that there was several elements of luck or fate that turned our way that morning.
Way to go! Way to steer, Dana!
I've learned from this experience that we are very vulnerable to our environment, and I hope in some way that my family can be spokespeople for the silent killer that carbon monoxide is.
Holy cow! Oh, I can't believe it.
The rescuers that were here that morning, I'm telling you, I was ready to hug every one of them. They went to their job and they did a superb job. I get goose pimples when I say that because they're great. They're great. They're fantastic.
I think definitely the incident has brought us closer together as a family.
Fine.
It's really, really scary to think that we could have all died that morning, you know.
The happiest moment was really seeing everybody okay. And I know that if we can get through that, I think we can get through anything.
Next.
Dispatch called back to us and asked us what our estimated time of arrival was. Usually that means that something serious is going on at the scene.